Welcome back to our series on learning to read and write welding symbols. In this tutorial, we're diving deep into the world of groove welding symbols, a critical area for anyone working with more complex joint preparations. Let's start with types of groove welds. There are 8 primary types of groove welds, and their symbols can convey a wealth of information, from the depth of the groove and weld size to the overall length of the weld. While it might seem like a lot, there's a consistent logic to how this information is presented, making them surprisingly straightforward to understand. This figure displays the different types of groove welds. While the scarf groove weld is typically associated with brazing, all the others are very common in arc welding. Just like with fillet welds, the position of the weld symbol on the reference line, whether it's above or below, determines which side of the joint you'll be welding. The groove weld symbols visually mimic the geometry of the joint itself. Following the same principles as fillet weld symbols, if a groove weld symbol contains a perpendicular line, that line will always be positioned to the left of the symbol. This applies to square, bevel, J, and flare bevel groove welds. These particular welds, with the exception of the square groove, require some form of preparation on one side of the joint. We'll soon see how a broken arrow indicates which side needs this preparation. This figure illustrates 7 kinds of groove welds frequently encountered in arc welding, showing all 3 possibilities for symbol placement: arrow side, other side, and both sides, along with a graphical representation of the joint itself. Pause the video and take time to study the symbols and weld placement based on the symbol location. Broken arrow. Most groove welds, with the exception of square groove welds, require some form of joint preparation. This might involve beveling, machining, or simply utilizing the inherent geometry of the parts being joined, such as when 2 tubes create a flare V groove. When only one side of the joint requires preparation, the welding symbol must clearly specify which side needs to be prepared. This is where the broken arrow comes in. If a broken arrow is not used, as you see in this image, then either side of the joint can be prepared. The choice is up to the fabricator. However, when it's absolutely necessary to prepare a specific side, the broken arrow must be used. The side that receives the preparation, whether it's beveled, machined, or otherwise, is always the side to which the broken arrow points. This rule applies consistently even for welds made from both sides of the joint. The broken arrow always points to the side that requires preparation. Groove weld preparation. Just like fillet welds, groove welds have specific dimensions that need to be conveyed. When precise dimensions are required, the welding symbol provides all the necessary information. Some of the dimensions you might see on a groove welding symbol include root opening, groove angle, depth of groove preparation, weld size, and for J and U grooves, radii and root face. The good news is that the notations for these dimensions are consistent across all types of groove weld symbols, simplifying the reading process. Root opening. The root opening refers to the separation distance between the parts being joined. This dimension is always displayed inside the groove weld symbol. In the case of a double-sided weld, like a double V groove, the root opening dimension only needs to be shown once, on either side of the reference line. Groove angle. The groove angle is specified outside of the groove weld symbol. It's important not to confuse the groove angle with the bevel angle. The groove angle is the total included angle of the prepared joint. For example, if the groove angle is 45 degrees, and both sides are equally prepared, each bevel angle would be 22.5 degrees. If both sides of the joint require preparation, the groove angle must be shown on both sides of the reference line, even if they are the same dimension. Depth of groove preparation. The depth of groove preparation specifies how deep the bevel or other preparation extends into the material. This dimension is always shown to the left of the groove weld symbol. Weld size. The weld size is measured from the top surface of the base metal down to the point of deepest root penetration. The weld size can be the same as the depth of groove preparation, or it can be larger, indicating penetration beyond the prepared groove. It is always displayed to the left of the welding symbol and, importantly, must be enclosed in parentheses. This signifies the final weld dimension, including any penetration beyond the prepared joint. Joint preparation radius. For J groove and U groove welds, which feature a machined radius rather than straight edges, the radius is not directly specified on the welding symbol itself. Instead, it must be specified with a note in the tail section of the welding symbol, referencing another drawing, or through a separate detail drawing placed next to the welding symbol. Root face. The root face dimension is also specific to J-groove and U-groove welds. While other groove types can have a root face, its dimension can usually be derived from the plate thickness and depth of preparation. However, with J and U grooves, this isn't possible, so the root face dimension must be specified. As with the radius, the root face dimension is specified either in the tail section or by pointing to a detailed drawing, like detail B in this figure, which specifies a 1/8 inch root face. Supplementary symbols for groove welds. The supplementary symbols we discussed for fillet welds in part 1 of this video series, such as the all-around symbol, field weld symbol, multiple arrows, contour, and finishing methods, also apply to groove welds. This figure serves as a quick review of these symbols, which you'll commonly see used in conjunction with groove weld symbols. But in addition to these, groove welding symbols may also incorporate some unique supplementary symbols. Melt-through symbol. The melt-through symbol is used when a complete joint penetration weld is made from one side, and visible root reinforcement is required on the opposite side. This symbol, which is a filled-in half circle, must be placed on the side of the reference line opposite to the groove weld symbol. You can also specify the desired height of this reinforcement by placing the dimension to the left of the melt-through symbol. Back weld and backing weld symbols. Now, pay close attention, because back welds and backing welds are two distinct processes, even though they share the same symbol, an unfilled half circle. The difference is crucial. A back weld is made on the opposite side after the main groove weld has been completed. A backing weld, however, is performed before the main groove weld to help prevent burn-through or to support the root. There are two primary ways to specify whether the symbol is calling for a back weld or a backing weld. One method is to simply state it in the tail section of the welding symbol. The second, and often clearer method, is to use multiple reference lines. This indicates the precise order of operations. For example, this symbol shows a V-groove weld from the arrow side followed by a backing weld from the other side. Spacer symbol. When a spacer is required in the joint preparation, the welding symbol will clearly show this. This is indicated by a rectangle that appears to split the reference line. The material type and specific dimensions of the spacer must then be detailed in the tail section of the welding symbol. Consumable insert symbol. If a consumable insert is to be used, its symbol is a square placed on the side of the reference line, opposite to the groove weld symbol. Be careful not to confuse this with the backing strip symbol, which looks similar. There are different classes of consumable inserts, and the specific class to be used must be clearly specified in the tail section of the welding symbol. Backing strip symbol. The backing strip symbol is a rectangle, similar in appearance to the spacer symbol, placed on the side of the reference line opposite to the groove weld symbol. For certain applications, the backing strip needs to be removed after welding. If this is the case, an R must be placed inside the backing strip symbol. As with other spacers and consumable inserts, the type of material and its dimensions must also be specified in the tail section of the welding symbol. This wraps up part 2 of our welding symbols tutorial, focusing on groove welds and their intricate details. We've explored the various groove types, the crucial role of the broken arrow, how to interpret dimensions like root opening and weld size, and a range of supplementary symbols that add critical context to your weld instructions. This universal language of welding ensures that complex fabrication can be executed with precision. Keep practicing, keep learning, and you'll soon be reading blueprints like a pro. If this video helped you understand groove welding symbols, please give us a like, share it with your colleagues, and subscribe for more essential welding knowledge. Thanks for watching.